Alright, yeah, and welcome on into some more Magic Arena. This week we're going to be taking a look at an ultra budget list of black-white Paladin infinite combo. So, by ultra budget, I actually mean that this deck only contains 4 rares in the entire deck and 0 mythics, and the 4 rares are actually isolated chapels, and therefore they're not actually that important. You could actually change these out for the white-black tap lands, although I would say that getting your hands on some isolated chapels is better for the deck and better for deck building as a whole. The good thing about this deck as well is it's got a lot of cards that will go into a control deck later down the line, or even vampires as well, as a nice little transition from ultra budget. But this deck is definitely pretty competitive. I wouldn't say it's tier 1 by any stretch, don't get me wrong, but I am in Diamond 1/2. I'm closing in on the ranks. I've actually nearly gained a full rank playing this deck in Diamond. If that matters to you, doesn't particularly matter to me, but yeah, it actually can beat red deck wins, and if you're on the play, you can definitely get underneath blue-white control and things like that. So, anyway, let's look at the deck, shall we? So, the basic combo of the deck is playing around Famished Paladin and giving it lifelink with either Squire's Devotion or Cartouche of Ambition, equipping it with Sorcerer's Wand, and then tapping infinitely. So, Famished Paladin is 1 and a white for a 3/3 creature. It says it doesn't untap during your untap step. However, if you gain life, you get to untap Famished Paladin. So, if you were to play Famished Paladin on 2, and then on 3, you equip a Squire's Devotion or a Cartouche of Ambition. Cartouche actually has an extra benefit that I enjoy as well, which is why I'm running both of them. Also for easy finding as well, though. But you essentially attach Squire's Devotion, which is 2 and a white, Enchantment Aura. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has lifelink, and it also creates a 1/1 white vampire token with lifelink at the same time. Kind of relevant in certain situations. So, you make your Famished Paladin a 4/4 lifelinker, which basically gives it vigilance on turn 3 as well. And then on turn 4, you play your Sorcerer's Wand, which is 1 mana, and says equipped creature has tap. This creature deals 1 damage to target creature or target player or planeswalker. If this creature is a wizard, it deals blah 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 blah. Doesn't actually matter. The equip is 3. So turn 2, Famished Paladin. Turn 3, Squire's Devotion. Turn 4, play Sorcerer's Wand, equip it, and then tap infinitely. And the way the tap infinitely works is essentially that the equipment itself says this creature deals the damage, and because Famished Paladin has lifelink, when he deals that damage, we gain the life, which untaps him. So you can tap him, untap him, tap him, untap him, tap him, untap him. You can do that forever. So no matter what life your opponent is on, they are going to die, unless they're on maybe 5,000 and the timer kicks you out. Should state as well that the timer is not a problem with this deck. I know a lot of infinite combos do struggle with the timer, but I have beaten someone on 20-ish life with a ×1 on my timer and still managed to beat them out easily without the burn of the timer actually starting to go around. So it's actually not an issue for this deck. So that's basically the combo. The way that we achieve that combo is basically by digging for it. It's very all-in in this deck, but it does have a counter victory method as well, which does actually kind of include the Famished Paladin swinging in for 4 every turn. That is a lot for something like red deck wins, which having a 4/4 lifelinker swinging is kind of hard to deal with. It needs to be answered by 2 removal spells most of the time. So to dig for it, we've got things like Dust Legion Zealot, 1 and a black for a 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card and lose 1 life. So we essentially get to play a blocker down and see an extra card. The blocker itself is good for basically slowing your opponent down from killing you, maybe even baiting out removal. It's also good for that. We also have Andante Vanguard for baiting out removal as well. 1 and a white for a 1/1. As long as Andante Vanguard is attacking, it gets +2/+0. So essentially it swings for 3 on the attack. 4 if you've got the Squire's Devotion. And that's kind of important because Andante Vanguard has the secondary ability, pay 4 life and give it indestructible until the end of the turn. Which basically means if your opponent is using damage-based removal, or even destroy-based removal, in the case of like Cast Down or something like that, it makes Andante Vanguard basically immortal, because you turn him into a 4 damage lifelinker on the attack if you put something like a Squire's Devotion on him. So it's always basically free to pay that 4 life, because you're gaining it on the attack, you're paying for the 4 life back again in order to keep him indestructible, and then it eventually starts forcing blocks, and it's just never good for your opponent, and you can start pushing through. So really good actual alternative win condition in the Andante Vanguard. I've had many a win doing that myself. So to find Famished Paladin, we actually have 4 copies of Forerunner of the Legion, which basically makes Famished Paladin the 8th copy in our deck, essentially. Because Forerunner of the Legion is 2 and a white for a 2/2, and when he enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a vampire card, reveal it and shuffle your library, put that card on top of it. The downside is that your opponent does get a little bit of an inkling that you're going to be doing this, because they get to see that revealed card, but if they can't answer it, then it's another way to find your combo piece. Also says whenever another vampire enters the battlefield under your control, target creature gets 1/1/1 until the end of the turn. So if we're putting that on lifelink creatures as well, we end up netting a fair bit of life that way. As for the second combo piece, the way to give them lifelink, we've got Squire's Devotion, 4 copies of this one, 2 and a white for an enchant creature. Enchant creature gets +1/+1 on lifelink, enters the battlefield, it creates a vampire with lifelink. So yet again, the blocker that we need to survive until we get our Sorcerer's Wand equipped, essentially, on the secondary ability there, as well as giving us a 4/4 or a 4/2 as well in the Andante Vanguard. We've also got Cartouche of Ambition, so for 2 and a black enchant creature you control, when Cartouche of Ambition enters the battlefield, you may put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has lifelink. So the bottom part of that is the part that matters to us. Basically, I have 6 copies of the second combo piece, so 8 basically of the Famished Paladin and 6 of the Squire's Devotion. We don't really want 8 copies of this because we don't often have that much to place them on, and you don't really get too much value from having 2 of them on the same creature. So 6 copies I've found is more than enough to get where we need to go. The -1/-1 counter on target creature for the Cartouche of Ambition actually has come into effect quite a fair bit as well, and actually helped with us. So if we're up against maybe our opponent's Andante Vanguard, we can actually kill it on the spot. The Indestructible can't be played around with the -1/-1 counter. It's also there for things like Fanatical Firebrand as well. If we equip a Famished Paladin up with the Cartouche of Ambition, we turn him into a 4/4, which means he's out of range of lightning strikes unless our opponent has a Fanatical Firebrand left to ping. So being able to pick it off with the Cartouche of Ambition, or even take care of one of their Kenras, the red 2/1, whose name escapes me, the one with the Eternalize, that's the one. You can take care of that one as well if it's in its 2/1 form. The only problem with assembling the combo that we do have is that Sorcerer's Wand is not something that can be tutored. It is something, though, that once we've got one of, we don't really need anymore, and that can be a bad thing for us if we start drawing multiples as well. So it's not the worst thing in the world not to have a way to tutor these, but it could be better. I thought about maybe using the 4-mana enchantment, Mastermind's Acquisition to go and fetch it, but I think that's a little too slow. But maybe I want to consider doing something like that. We've also got plenty of ways to dig for it at the end of the day, so it's not too bad. We've got 3 copies of Cast Out. Cast Out is here for sometimes the cycling. It can be a free card in our deck. If we pay 1 white, we discard it and redraw, so it's another way to dig towards one of our combo pieces, and often I do find myself doing that. It's very matchup dependent, though, whether or not you want to use a Cast Out. I will say the biggest enemy of this deck is Thrashing Brontodon, so having a Cast Out to take out Thrashing Brontodon is really good for that as well. We do have ways of killing it with Cast Down as well. We're running 2 copies of that to destroy target non-legendary creature. Yet again, to slow down our opponents in the early game as well, as well as the Moment of Craving. Moment of Craving does have an extra effect on it, though. So it's 1 and a black for instant speed. Target creature gets -2/-2 until the end of the turn. So it deals with a lot of creatures from red deck wins, and a lot of creatures in general, actually. But the secondary part of it, you gain 2 life, has actually come in being quite relevant, not only to give us extra life to keep us in the game, but also the gaining of life with Famished Paladin untaps him. So there's 2 examples really that I've actually come across where Moment of Craving has done more than just be a a removal spell. So I've had my tapped Famished Paladin with my Squire's Devotion, not ready to actually pull off the combo yet. And I've had a Moment of Craving in hand. My opponent swung in. I've destroyed one creature with the Moment of Craving, gained the life, which has untapped the Paladin and allowed me to block another creature to take them out. There's also another part as well. If you go for your combo against something like blue-white control, and you tap with the Sorcerer's Wand, in response they can go for a Seal Away, which basically says tap, exile target tapped creature. So if you actually enter that position, and the Famished Paladin's untap trigger is on the stack, you're pretty much screwed, unless you Moment of Craving your own Famished Paladin, gain the life, untap him, and essentially fizzle the Seal Away, and get to go on to your infinite combo again. I've managed to do that as well, which is pretty sweet. We've also got 4 copies of Duress as well, 1 black to protect our combo basically, and make sure that the coast is clear, to get those Seal Aways out of our opponent's deck, to get the Vraska's Contempts, the Cast Downs, the things like that essentially. Any removal that could slow us down from doing our combo or destroy our Sorcerer's Wands, maybe Lightning Strikes and Abrades from red deck wins, that kind of thing. So target opponent reveals their hand, you choose a non-creature, non-land card from it, and that player discards that card. Against control as well, you're getting information from them to find out if the coast is clear, and you're also usually eating a counter out of their hand, which is a win anyway. As long as you're getting something out of their hand with Duress, you're kind of coming out on top for the most part. So that is basically the deck. The mana base is pretty simple. We've got 4 copies of Isolated Chapel. They are the only rare in our deck as well. They enter the battlefield tapped unless you control a Plains or a Swamp. We've got 8 copies of Swamp and 8 Plains as well. Running 2 copies of Memorial to Folly. Basically another way to get our Famished Paladin out of the graveyard, but it really just grabs anything. And if we're flooded or we're in the late game or something like that, it's very easy for us to pay the 2 in the black, to tap it, to sacrifice it, to return target creature from our graveyard to the hand as well, in order to rebuild our combo and go infinite. Well, that is the deck anyway, guys. If you do want to watch some matches, at the end card I do have a link to that video as well. We have a few doozies in store for you guys as well, so I highly recommend playing this deck as an ultra budget as well. It's very easy to construct. It's like 95%, maybe even 90, you know, a little bit more than that, mostly commons and uncommons, and a lot of them as well are part of the starter set and also will go into a lot of other decks as well. As maybe I mentioned, there are a lot of cards in here that can go into a vampire deck if you want to branch out into that. Squire's Devotion's okay for that kind of thing. Forerunner and Danta Vanguard, and maybe even Famished Paladin. Maybe even you want to put the combo into a vampires list as a way to expand. But there's also a few control cards in here as well. Cast Down. Moment of Craving's good in a lot of black decks, and Cast Out as well goes into a lot of white control decks, plus the Duresses of course. So there's a lot in this deck that can be switched out into new decks. So a lot of stuff to be expanded, and I don't really think there are many rares or mythics that you'd even want to add to this deck in particular. Actually, I think this is actually kind of feature complete. I've not really played a game where I felt that I'm missing anything as far as this deck's concerned, other than a sideboard, of course. That would be lovely. Wizards. Yep. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for today's deck tech. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Check out the matches if you want to see this thing in action. It is more competitive than it looks. I thought it was memey at first, but it has actually blown me out of the water with how competitive it can be at times. But yeah, like and subscribe, hit that little bell icon, and you'll get notifications when future videos go live. And I do hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.